On Sunday, I preached about Jesus coming in and surrendering all of himself to the Father and to the Father's will. And we see over and over again, he makes time for those who weren't given any, and he heals those who the society said weren't worth it. And he does the thing that everyone thinks every time shouldn't have happened. And yet, we are blessed by him giving us this creation and allowing us to live in it and to restore it and to work it and to manage it. And yet we continually, over and over and over again, mess it up. And so our goal as Christians should be to continue to look more and more like Jesus. And in the Nazarene Church, we have a doctrine, it's called entire sanctification, and it talks about this second work of grace when the Holy Spirit comes and we're not just accepting Christ into our lives, but now we are allowing him to be Lord over our entire lives. We're surrendering every aspect and every piece of ourselves to Jesus and to the Holy Spirit and allowing them to do what they want to do in every area of life. That's a challenge that I think many of us fall short on all too often. And we walk through our day and we try to separate out to work and church, or school and church, and our faith and what we have to do as our job. And we try to make these things separate but also continually ask God to work and to move in all of those areas. This reminds me of a movie called Big Hero 6. And if you've seen it, you see the big white dude, and he's got this chip inside of him that allows him to care for those who are hurt and sick. And so throughout the movie, there's this new card that is programmed so that he has some sweet ninja fighting skills. And so he inserts the card next to the one that he is supposed to be a healer and a carer. He inserts this like ninja fighting program into this robotic big white hero guy. And throughout the movie, there's this challenge of now which card does he follow completely, right? He can't fully be a healer but also be the defender, and he can't fully go to the defender card while the healer card is inside of him. And I think as Christians, a lot of times we're stuck in the middle of that we've been programmed by the world to live a certain way, and now we're trying to just insert Jesus next to that and make it so that both of the cards are happy. When in reality, one of them always will trump or counteract the other. There can't be this whole double life. I'm going to live one way here, one way there, because eventually it just gets exhausting. And so throughout the movie, there's this recognition of what does being a hero look like, but also there's this internal struggle with the Big Hero 6 of what am I doing and what is my purpose. And I think for a lot of us as we go through our faith journey and we're saying, okay, God, I want to give all of myself to you. I want to give every situation of my life to you. I want to give all that you've blessed me and everything back to you, and I want to use all of my gifts for you. But there's this internal struggle but I still need to make money, and I still need to do what my job says, and I still have to take care of my family, and I still have to do these things. And so the world card starts to edge back in over and over and over, and Jesus is saying, hey, you can trust me with all of it. You can take the other card out. You don't need to trust and rely on the structures and everything that you've been taught your entire life. You can trust me with your life. We don't often live completely by faith, and we've talked week after week about the different stories in Mark and the ways that Jesus is moving and the miracles that he performs, but often I think we don't really live in that faith. When I'm sick, I don't go to Jeff and say, hey, pray for me. I usually go to the doctor first. When I have a fever, I don't think, oh, Jesus, anoint me and pray over me and take away my fever. I go get a Tylenol. And so for our lives, it looks a little different. I don't think we always have to trust and rely on our faith as much as we ought to. And yet we read in Mark all of these different times where people's faith causes them to be blessed and causes them to be restored and made whole. And so for many of us, I think when we get to this point of surrendering ourselves and surrendering all of us, the challenge is now, what does this mean in my life? And Jesus, in Mark chapter 11, talks through the disciples after he's walked them through the destruction of the temple and the judgment over the temple and this fig tree story. And he gets to this point of telling them about the power of what they ask for in prayer. And at the end of it, there's this line where he says, if you have a grievance with anyone, you ought to forgive them before you pray. I think for a lot of us, we look at the power of prayer and we say, yeah, that's good, and we can pray for somebody, but we're not willing to do the work of restoring the relationships and the things that are coming in the way of our own lives and our own relationship before we bring those things to Jesus. And so even in the midst of this chapter where he's judging and causing things like a fig tree to wither, his ending line is for them to remain in an attitude of forgiveness. For a lot of us, I think forgiveness is the one part of our card that we try to reject with the card that the world tells us it's okay not to forgive someone. This journey of completely forgiving someone is probably one of the most challenging for us, and yet we see Jesus model this when he goes to the cross and forgives those who put him there. I don't think most of us could even kind of relate to trying to forgive someone who has literally just nailed us to a cross. But yet in our lives, I think forgiveness is one of the most challenging things for us. And to forgive not because they asked for it, but because I need to forgive them in order to restore both my relationship with them, but also my relationship with God. And so this forgiveness is part of surrendering all of ourselves to who Jesus is. And so tonight, as you meet in your groups and you're discussing, what does it look like for me to completely live in this surrender and in this complete faith to God and give all of myself? And as I'm doing that, what does it look like for me to really forgive those who have hindered that relationship, who stop the ability for me to completely give my life to Jesus? And as you talk tonight, I hope that those things begin to work themselves out and you begin to restore and renew the things that you need to with your relationship with Jesus. And because of that faith, and because of the work that you do, we are able to restore and renew and make whole our own lives and our own relationships with Jesus. I hope you enjoy your night.